TikTok, it's time to rock. Welcome to the channel, folks. Welcome to a special episode here on the channel. We've got some good friends who've come back to join us live to have a chat, and they'll fill you in with a little bit of their backstory and their history, because we are sure, Bob, there will be people here that don't know anything about Bob, don't know anything about Pete, and anything about Rich. So this is the opportunity, guys, for people to know everything, and I'm including all the sort of details, Bob.
Let's not go there, Andrew.
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right. All right.
Well, I'm co-author with a book on Fleetwood Mac in Chicago, Chess Studios, with Jeff Lowenthal. And Rich Orlando took 15 years of his life to write a 3-volume book on everything that Peter Green basically ever did. Isn't that correct, Rich?
Yes, up until 1970.
And Pete Flynn, I don't know where to start. He's got a Petty tribute band, which isn't really a tribute band, which he'll go into, and why Tom Petty. He makes his own PAF pickups, and oddly enough, his initials are PAF. So
Yeah.
that's symmetry.
A coincidence.
And Pete's been in the music business for, I don't want to date yourself, I'll just say over 4 decades.
Yeah, there you go.
Um, So, and Rich has got an announcement to make about a book.
Well, I have just started working on a companion piece to the Peter Green books about Danny Kirwan. I mean, I covered all of his material that he recorded with the Green era Fleetwood Mac, but now I will take in the Boiler House, the 5 recordings that were released, and then all of his recordings with Fleetwood Mac after Peter Green had left the band. So hopefully it won't take me another 15 years, but I'm really enjoying what I've started with that.
And I got to tell you, Andrew, I think Rich made that decision right after the Hamer Jam last year, because he was going to do a book on Jeremy Spencer and Danny Kirwan combined, but I sat him down next to Paul Hamer at dinner. And
yeah, that was a big decision, and it definitely leaned me in the other direction.
Well, good. So now there can be 2 book series.
this one I hope doesn't take 15 years.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, we don't have another 15 years.
Right. Right. And I did want to, I am very happy to be on with you, Pete, because I really enjoyed your playing at the Hammerfest.
Oh,
that was really quite a night. That was terrific. And thank you, Bob, for inviting my wife and myself.
Always.
Yeah. What a great evening, and to see, all these people throughout history, seeing Paul again. It's been a long time for me. So, and I hadn't been to the Jam before because for some reason my schedule doesn't allow. But I am planning on going again if Bob's going to do it. And I hear
we are too.
Yep, we are going to do it October 11th.
51st.
Yeah, this is like our 5th Jam that Chris Herman and I have conducted. And we're actually gluttons for punishment or gluttons for fun. I'm not sure which. And you have a show coming up, Andrew, about definitely one of the best guitarists that ever walked the planet, Jimi Hendrix. And Mr. Flynn has got a few stories to tell.
Yeah, I was involved with a book series too, called the Eyewitness Concerts. You can see that without the glare.
Very good.
Ben Velkoff in the Netherlands put this together, and you guys probably know Ben. I mean, he's done so many Hendrix books. The eyewitness stuff was, well, I was tasked because I'm in the Chicago area. The whole concept behind the book is to find people who actually went to the shows. So Hendrix was in Chicago twice in '68 at the Coliseum and the Civic Opera House. So I was tasked with, oh my gosh, I had spent the whole summer at the university, Northwestern University in Evanston. I spent my whole summer going through microfilm of newspapers, trying to find Hendrix ads for these shows, and you know, of course, in the whole Sun Times and the Trib and all that stuff, these ads were this big. So going through the microfilm was quite a laborious, tedious, you know. So I found a bunch of ads for that, and then I was also tasked with finding people who'd gone to the show. How easy could that be?
Jeez.
So I was lucky enough after spending the whole summer in the library. So and I had Flynn Guitars at the time, a vintage guitar store in the Chicago area, and I had a lot of clients. So I just started asking, you know, people walking in the door, did you see Hendrix in Chicago? And I ran into a couple of folks who did, but then I hit the roadblock. Well, what do you remember? Well, nothing. Because of the obvious, I was stoned out of my head or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was like, this is just not going to be an easy task. So consequently, what had happened is Harvey Brooks had just put out a book, and Harvey was the bass player with Mike Bloomfield, Electric Flag, and I was in contact with him. I just bought a first generation audio tape from him, or a CD copy of his audio. He's the one who recorded Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison at the Scene Club in New York City.
Wow.
Nice.
In '68. So I was in contact with him, and you know, I said, Harvey, I'm just having a heck of a time trying to jar people's memories, and he really helped me out with this tablet of stuff where basically, you know, first question is, well, who did you go to the show with? Oh, it was my girlfriend. And how did you get to the show? Oh, I was too young to drive, so her dad took us. And it starts to. So once you get the first thing happening, then people's minds start to.
Yeah.
And the stuff starts to flow. So that's how that whole thing evolved and ended up in the books. So it was a lot of work, as you know, Richard. But it was very rewarding. It was a heck of a lot of fun. So you can get those books at hendrixbooks.com, and that's Ben Velkoff's website for all his books. He's done so many publications for the Hendrix stuff, the Foxy Papers and what have you. And he just came out with recently this book series called Hendrix Day by Day. This is and again, as you know, there's so many Hendrix books out there. I've just got boxes full of Hendrix books from all the years doing this stuff. But I have to say, what Ben and Luigi Garudi have put together here it's pretty mind-boggling, especially the early stuff, 67. So when you look at all the books, there's just not much information. It's always 68 and on when he became popular.
Right.
So it's very hard to dig up stuff. So Ben did the first 67 book, and it actually is so big that he had to do two, early part of 67 and latter part of 67. So this book is the greatest information on the early Hendrix stuff that I have.
Terrific.
ever seen or read in my life. It's just fantastic stuff. So there's a 68, a 69, and a 70, and they all came out backwards. So just
Well, that lends the question, Mr. Flynn.
yeah.
What's your, what did he have? 3 albums when he was alive? But what's your favorite Hendrix album?
My favorite Hendrix album has become over the years Cry of Love. And for the reason that if you go back to and again, it did all start with Are You Experienced.
Oh, special
I
guest.
Hey, Jeff. Glad you could join us.
Terrific.
Hey, Jeff.
So I did start with Are You Experienced like most people did, but it can be dated. It can be very psychedelic, and so is
Hey,
Axis.
everybody.
And nothing wrong with that. But I think what's incredible about the Cry of Love album is that it's so revolutionary is that you can't really put a label on it. Is it rock? Is it acid rock? Is it psychedelic? Is it R&B? Is it soul? It's all of that and more because it's just a new kind of music. And I think it's still as fresh today and relevant as it was when it came out in 71 because of the fact that it has all of those qualities to it and it's not dated. And by then he was in Electric Ladyland using 16-track and not stuck into the 4-track like Are You Experienced was. So you can sonically, it's monumental. So I think all those things are what makes it stack up to be, to me, his best work.
Well, we should introduce Mr. Jeff Lowenthal, the legendary photographer. Are you there, Jeff?
Hey, Jeff.
Yep. Just trying to so I can hear.
You're
the
fine.
audio.
You're fine.
Well, you can hear me, but I can barely hear you. So, but I'll try to make it out.
Okay.
Well, if you can't see, maybe, or you can't hear, maybe you can see.
Very good. Very good.
He saw
There
that,
is.
Pete.
Well, Richard should hold up his book also.
Yeah, Richard,
Yes.
you got a copy of your book handy?
Not at hand, but that's
I do.
okay.
All right,
Anyway,
Robert.
don't let me interrupt. I'm just watching tonight and wanted to say hello.
No, feel
Happy
free to
birthday,
interrupt.
Jeff, for a couple of weeks ago too.
Yeah, there it is. I love
Thank
it.
you, thank you,
I'm
Robert.
gonna, you bet. Backwards, right?
No,
No, that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
It's heavy. This is only one
Yeah.
volume.
the one
Yeah,
And
it's
by the
almost
way,
1,900 pages.
Richard, Paul Hamer has dug into the books and he's wowed by it. So
Terrific,
thought they'd hit
terrific.
that
I'm
on to you.
glad.
Hey Jeff, are you there?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Pete or Rich?
I did want to say one thing. We're picking pictures for this new book, and hold on a minute. Who's the guy? Tom. The band you have played.
Tom Petty.
Yeah, I have one picture of Tom Petty, and I'd be willing to sue you if you want to use it in the ads or posters. I don't know what the protocol is for that.
Yeah, we can use it.
Okay, it's a nice picture. It's only one, so
One's
Well, then
better,
forget
I'll
it.
see you tomorrow.
one's much better than none. So yeah.
And it's a one of a kind too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
since we're on that subject,
I just finished reading this book, speaking of Tom Petty, the Mike Campbell
Mhm.
autobiography. It's really incredible and a must read. And of course he goes, so this is great because there's so many stories of him and Tom
Hold
Petty.
on, I've got you on two computers now.
you got to mute it, Jeff.
We're in stereo in Jeff's house.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pete.
So great. There's so many great stories in there because they were Bob Dylan's backup band. And in 1985, their first tour with Bob Dylan was where, Andrew? In New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could use it. And that was a
Okay.
heck of a tour. It was an awesome tour. And then, so Mike Campbell, after Tom Petty passed and kind of floundering,
Jeff,
he
you're,
ended
you're
up.
driving us nuts.
You know,
Since we're on that subject, I just finished reading this book.
Art,
Oh, we're on delay too.
it's like a time warp. Jeff, you got to mute it, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Pete.
So Mike Campbell ended up taking Lindsey Buckingham's place in Fleetwood Mac on their last tour.
Yes.
And I saw that tour here in Milwaukee. It was really incredible. And by then, so they had started the tour, and Mike had never sung publicly other than a couple of club dates with his band. But Stevie Nicks actually talked him into doing the song "Oh Well," and Mike, being a huge Peter Green fan, he's like, "Well, yeah, I'd love to do that." She says, "Well, you have to sing it." He says, "Well, I don't think I want to do that." But he got to the point where he was comfortable enough doing it, and they brought in a vocal coach, and they did it at the show I saw, and they really tore it up. It was fantastic. So, I mean, these guys, they, like all of us, it's all about carrying the torch, and for Peter Green and Fleetwood, that era Fleetwood Mac, and Mike's just done a fantastic job with that.
Why did you decide to do a Tom Petty thing?
Well, it's funny because I actually hadn't, other than being familiar with, all the top 40 hits for 40 years, on the radio and such. I wasn't a huge Tom Petty fan, but all the bands in the Chicago area and up in Wisconsin, there's a big venue that hosted all the great rock bands up here in Wisconsin called the Brat Stop. It's seen, Alvin Lee and Johnny Winter and you name it. Everybody from the 60s and 70s played the Brat Stop. And I had to drive there every day on my way to work. I worked for Dean at Dean Guitars, Dean Zielinski at the time. And every day I'd come home, and who's on the marquee? It was a tribute band. So I thought, well, maybe I should start looking at a tribute band. And I just couldn't think of anybody because everybody in the Chicago area, it was well covered. So I went home and started watching on YouTube what bands played at the Super Bowl. And it was The Who and Prince and all these bands. And then Tom Petty came on. Like, wow, that's it. So that's how the whole thing started. And I thought, well, how difficult can this be? It's only 3, 4, 5 chord pop music. Was I in for a surprise? It took me, so I do all the Mike Campbell stuff in our band, and it took me a year to transcribe all of my parts.
Well, the big thing with your band, though, Pete, it must be said, is you play the records note for note.
We do.
It's also a 7-piece band.
Yeah, Tom's last touring band had the Webb sisters, 2 female backing vocalists, and I thought, I just wanted to do it like his last tour, and so we have my wife Rebecca Jordan's one of the singers, Stacy Jordan from the Lake Geneva, Stacy Sheets from the Lake Geneva area. So we have the female background vocalist too. So it's
and Andrew will be very curious to know, how many guitars do you have on stage yourself?
Well, my minimal is 7. And because of the different tunings, I have this guitar which don't come around here no more, and that's tuned to F. I've got my Firebird, Gibson Firebird, that's also tuned to F, because the tail end of that song I have to switch guitars, and then we go into You Wreck Me, which was also tuned to F. I have a guitar, SG, Gibson SG, that's tuned to open G for I can't remember. So many songs. I won't back down. And then there's another guitar for slide that's in standard tuning, and so on and so on and so on. So you have to have all these tools in the arsenal to pull that off. And and being a drummer originally, I thought getting into a band as a guitarist, well, I don't have to haul around this big drum set anymore. But
Oopsie.
Yeah,
now
how's
it's
that
all these,
working?
yeah, now it's all these guitars instead. So it wasn't much of a trade-off in that respect. But yeah, it's great. It's exciting. It's a great band. Everybody in it is just, fantastic. Mike Redman is our Tom Petty, and he's very well known in the Chicago area the last, 4 decades as well, playing in bands like Off Broadway and such. So um, it's just awesome.
And it must be
I
said,
can say
typical
that I
singer,
really
he doesn't
enjoyed it.
tear down equipment.
I caught him doing it once, so I have to give him credit.
Must have been an accident, Pete. So Jeff, are you working?
Yes.
Why don't you tell Andrew, Pete, and Rich the book we've been working on, book 2 for Lowenthal?
Well, it's going to be my last gasp, I believe. It's music pictures that are, except for 4, are not Fleetwood Mac. They're musicians, mostly jazz, but some rock, and plus 3 comedians the publishers allowed me to use. Comedians who played jazz clubs, Mort Sahl, Lenny Bruce, and Shelley Berman. So that should be interesting. And Robert and a friend of his, Chris Herman, have been helping me go through these thousands of images to see if we can find 120 that are good enough.
Talk about going through microfiche, Pete. Oh my God. But it has to be said that the photos that Jeff has taken over the years is American historical music history.
Yeah,
I mean, you have Count Basie, Duke Ellington, anybody that went through Chess Studios, Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. Yeah, well, there'll probably be another.
Now you're going to get their hopes up.
Our hopes are up. It really sounds exciting.
I'm very excited about
Some
it.
of the pictures, and I got to tell you, the only non-Americans in it are probably Fleetwood Mac, and he was granted access backstage to the police.
Wow.
And there's some backstage photos of Sting, Gordon Sumner, that will wow you, including things with his what was his bodyguard? Was it, Jeff?
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to hear.
Was it his bodyguard, Sting's bodyguard and trainer?
Yeah,
backstage.
he was bodyguard and trainer. Served
And some of the anecdotes that he has, Jeff's got a picture of his wife and Roy Eldridge, the famous trumpeter, backstage, black and white photo. In the background, you see a bottle of scotch. And his story is that was Ella Fitzgerald's dressing room. And when she left the dressing room, they drank the scotch.
We left a little.
We left a little. And Jeff was, if anybody knows comedy, Lenny Bruce. There wouldn't be a George Carlin, a Robin Williams, et cetera, without a Lenny Bruce. Yeah. And Jeff hung out at the Gate of Horn in Chicago with Lenny Bruce for a good month.
Wow.
And of course, the only night he wasn't there was the night he got arrested.
Details.
So
timing is everything.
Timing is everything. And I know Jeff and Rich had questions about your pickups. So about Pete's pickups.
Oh,
and what,
yeah.
And what makes a PAF pickup? Explain.
I was interested to know how.
Go ahead, Jeff.
These are particularly customized for each person you make them for? Are they physically different?
I do have a standard set of PAFs, but yeah, I don't have much stock because I do everything as primarily a custom order, so it's all made to order. But as some people know, and for those who don't, these pickups were invented by a guy named Seth Lover in 1957 in Gibson, and they had issues with pickups, 60 cycle hum, and they wanted to create a pickup that didn't have that noise, that line noise. So they used two coils instead of a single coil. And when you put them together, one coil cancels out the noise of the other, and that's why it's called a humbucker. So
That's
these
not a nasty word.
no, it's not. Well, not in our world. But so all the iconic guitars back then, you know, Clapton was the first one to put it really on the public map. But you know, my research has shown that Keith Richards was one of the first guys to play a Les Paul Sunburst on television, that it was televised. And I think that's what led Clapton and other people to seek out the guitar. I know Mike Bloomfield, because of Clapton, had to have a Les Paul Sunburst. So they started the guitar in 1957 as a gold top. And by the late 58, it became the Les Paul Sunburst with the flame maple top on it to just attract more customers, because the gold top at that point was already about 5 years old and the sales were dropping off. But with the advent of the flame maple top and the Sunburst and the new humbucking pickups, they were hoping to start a resurgence with the Les Paul sales. Unfortunately, really, that didn't happen. So by the end of 1960, they discontinued the Les Paul. But what had happened is Eric Clapton really made that guitar and that sound famous on the John Mayall and the Blues Breakers record with Eric Clapton. So that tone became, it was so groundbreaking of Eric Clapton playing that guitar with those pickups through a Marshall amp on that record with the distortion, that people had never heard that before. It was so groundbreaking that it made Peter Green and Mick Taylor and Mike Bloomfield and so many people go out in search of the Les Paul with the humbuckers in it. So that's how that whole phenomena started. So, you know, to this day, everybody still is in search of that tone. But to buy a 58, 59, 1960 Les Paul Sunburst, you can be anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 to buy one. So that leaves most of us out in the cold.
Maybe not Richard.
Yeah, but you know, so over the years, there have been so many companies, Seymour Duncan and DiMarzio, and a lot of boutique builders seeking to try to replicate that tone. And, you know, it's one of those things that basically I couldn't find a replica pickup that actually sounded like a vintage PAF. And those initials, PAF, were only an abbreviation for, on the bottom of the pickup, there was a little decal that said patent applied for. So over the years, they just shortened that.
Oh, no kidding.
And that's how it became the PAF in short.
So it wasn't named after you.
Yeah, and it wasn't named after me. No, I wasn't named after it, although it just happened over time. So I never did like my middle name, but as the years went on, I was like, oh, PAF, well, isn't that fitting? So, you know, I'll use it. But so, you know, I just was like any other customer. I had bought tens of thousands of dollars worth of pickups trying to get that tone, and I just wasn't achieving it. So I just decided at that point I was doing pickup rewinds for pickups that had broken over the years. So I just decided to venture on my own and try it, and I developed a humbucking pickup that sounds like a vintage patent applied for Gibson pickup, and it's just kind of in the last 3 years, kind of catching fire, so to speak. So
excellent.
To be happy.
Great, more power to you.
And it's caught fire with some people, including Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah, Joe Bonamassa is playing his guitar player Josh Smith, who's just an incredible guitar player, session guy, LA, Nashville, Kirk Fletcher, one of the great LA blues guys. I try to go to shows. Here we are in this digital world, and we're all doing. This is a perfect example of we're all talking to each other on the internet. I really try to go as many shows as I can in person because FaceTime, I think, is just so valuable in this day and
Yes.
age. Because you can talk the talk, but it only goes so far. Everybody's heard it all. So Josh has been using my pickups for about a year, and I went to one of the shows in Appleton, Wisconsin, to meet Josh in person finally. I wanted to meet him and just hang with him backstage. He's an incredible guy and human being, generous guy. Just a world class guitar player, just amazing. And so I brought a bunch of guitars, and Josh was playing them before the show, and Joe Bonamassa came out on the stage and he says, "Well, sound check's over, but I'm still hearing guitar playing, which is unusual. Like, what's going on out here?" I said, "Well, I just brought a bunch of guitars." I introduced myself. He says, "Oh, you're the pickup guy." "Oh, okay, I'm the pickup guy." And because he had heard Josh's guitar with my pickups in it.
And he didn't mean that in a mean way.
No, he
Yes.
didn't. It was great. So Joe played all the guitars with the pickups. He really liked them all. He got a set of my patent applied for humbuckers, the PAFs, and he got a broadcaster set, and eventually a Strat and a P90 set. And he actually got a guitar from Tom Murphy, who runs the vintage Tom Murphy lab at Gibson Guitars. He got a 58 Explorer replica, the Korean Explorer replica. And Joe wasn't playing it. He didn't really care for the tone of those particular pickups in there. And he had tried another set of pickups in that guitar and still wasn't so keen on it. So he put that set of pickups in there that he got from me, and he loved it. And so there's a video out there right now that he was showing an interviewer. Joe actually now has that guitar out on tour with him with my pickups in it. And he said, and here's a guy who's got 500-600 guitars, can take any vintage guitar,
Right.
any piece out on the road. And this ended up in his guitar vault
Terrific.
to tour with. So
Well, that says a lot about your pickups, Pete.
it was an
Yep.
unexpected, it's awesome. So yeah, it's they're making the round. So there's sometimes, I don't get to meet people. Like I went to the Peter Frampton show last year, and boy, he was incredible. Even with his disability, he has to sit down. He hasn't skipped a beat. It was just an amazing show. If you haven't had a chance to see Frampton lately, he's worth going. I mean, it was one of the most uplifting concerts I've ever been to in my life. I just
Wow.
can't say enough about it. So I wasn't able to meet him, but I did get contact with one of the guys there who gave the guitars to his guitar tech, Rich Gibson, and then I've been in contact with him. Peter liked the pickups, and he asked for it, so I gave him a what we call an A5 set. So that A5 is the specific magnet that Gibson used in those pickups in late '59 and 1960. And then Peter requested a A2 set, the A2 magnet. So I sent him a set of those in Nashville. Haven't heard back whether he's put them in a guitar or not, but
Well, hopefully we'll hear. Sorry, Pete. Hopefully we'll hear back shortly next month from Paul Hamer and perhaps Rick Nielsen, because I dropped those off for you too.
Yeah. So next month, I think it's June 1st in Rockford at the Hard Rock Casino that just opened in Rockford, Illinois. There's going to be a benefit and a little showing of guitar. I think they're going to have some guitar booths I think Paul Hamer's going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'll have a booth with all my pickups in it. Rick Nielsen will be there signing autographs and stuff. So that's going to be exciting too, to be part
Very
of
good. Good luck with that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great.
Now pickups can be sent anywhere in the world, and not to put you on the spot, but are they expensive?
They're
handmade.
I tried to price them like right in the middle of all the boutique stuff because typically they start at about $250 a set up to $1,000 a set. So mine are $450 a set.
Now we got to circle back for Richard. So can you make out of phase pickups?
I do. Yes, I do have. As a matter of fact, on this guitar, my greenie, I have a set of out of phase greenie set in this guitar.
Really?
Yeah. So it's basically just they reverse what Gibson did in the Gibson ES345s and 355. Is they reverse the magnet in the neck position. So when you're in the center position with both pickups going, you get that out of phase sound. And for people who even aren't that familiar with Peter Green and that out of phase sound, it's basically the BB King, that signature BB King tone.
Yep. Excellent.
Now, since I want to be clear about a couple of things, Rich, we always get asked, and Pete probably knows this too, an albatross, is that a slide plane?
No, that's actually Danny. That's his vibrato.
And it has to be said, that was his first studio appearance ever.
With Fleetwood Mac, yep.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Now, how old was he, Rich? 17 or?
He had just turned 18. I think the session was in October, and he would have turned 18 that May. So
now Jeff's got a picture which we might include in the new book, and it's from Chess Studios. But if you can picture this, the studio wall to the left with a line of card chairs looking into the studio where the performers are. And there's one person sitting in a card chair by himself. Danny.
Right.
Yep.
It says it all, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Pete, I would think you'd say, no matter what kind of pickups you have, even if you have those great out of phase pickups, it's the player, not the guitar.
Yeah, it's certainly you can. I mean, there's just so many great examples of that. Can you really tell on a Peter Green recording whether he's playing a Strat or a Les Paul? Typically not. It's just
Right.
Ritchie Blackmore, when he started with Deep Purple, played a 335, and then in rock he was playing the 335 in the Strat. You cannot tell the difference. It's especially the great players. You hear them; it's unmistakable. It doesn't matter what amplifier they're playing through or what guitar it is. They've just developed that thing that makes them their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they talk about that.
What a great pickup should do is just, if you just think of it as a microphone, it's just trying to translate what it's hearing. So,
right.
That's what it's about.
That's an interesting analogy. Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite players is Andy Powell from Wishbone Ash. Andy, he's also, with Wishbone Ash in '69. That was groundbreaking to have that twin guitar thing going on. The Allman Brothers had their own thing going on in the States, but this was different. They were just playing parts together instead of a couple of harmonies here and there. So very groundbreaking stuff. I'm happy too because Andy, I actually make an Andy Powell signature series pickups now, and they replicate what he, his 1967 Flying V that he used with Wishbone Ash. He is still touring with that guitar today, and
amazing.
So I've replicated a set of humbuckers that were in his guitar, and those are available too. And you get a certificate, Andy Powell certificate that he signs when you get a set of those pickups. So Andy's touring the globe with those pickups. So is his latest guitar player with him, Mark Abrahams, who's been with the band for quite a long time now. He's got a signature set too. But and Mark's no different. When he just starts playing, it's him. And when most of the great players, 3 notes in, You know who these guys are. No mistake.
It's true. Jeff, do you have any questions here?
No, I just had one for Andrew. Who is Andy? He seems to be.
Yeah, we all want to know that.
That's one thing I have to go back to is the Hamer Jam that we had. Have you ever seen so many Hamer guitars, Pete?
Yeah, my house.
Yeah, your house.
Yeah, well, you know, again, when in 1974, when the first Hamer standards started to trickle into Northern Prairie Music, which was Hamer's guitar store before it became Hamer Guitars, I was there, you know, and it was just one of those things you always dreamed about, having a Hamer standard. You know, it was Martin Barr was one of the first to do it, and Jethro Tull, and you know, the list goes on. So I'm lucky enough now to own two Hamer standards from the early days. You know, I brought them to the Hamer Jam. They are just incredible guitars. So
well, I got a quick story to tell that maybe I'm talking out of turn, but I've been working with Debbie Simmons on Kim Simmons' autobiography.
I heard.
And I know you did, Pete. Here's a great story about guitars, proving that it's the player, not necessarily the guitar. Debbie and Kim Simmons walk into a Walmart and they're doing their shopping. Kim turns to Debbie and says, "Hey, they're selling guitars for $99. And her reply is, "So?" He bought it, which is no big deal, right? He brought it home, blah, blah, blah. Here's the caveat. He toured with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Kim was that guy too. I mean, again, how many videos? He's rarely playing the same guitar.
Yeah.
He just always sounded like him, period.
He was also a true gentleman.
He certainly was. I was fortunate enough to meet him too, and set up a couple guitars for him when he was in town, and yeah, just super guy.
Well, there's one story, you know, I've been talking to Leo Lyons too about a book from 10 years after, and Pete, I got to bring it up. You got a great Alvin Lee story.
Well,
which spurred a huge discussion with me and Leo Lyons for about 10 minutes.
So we were the number one backup band, rock band in Chicago in the late 80s, 90s through the early 2000s. So it was, whether it was Deep Purple or Marshall Tucker or Grand Funk. So one night, we were playing with 10 Years After at the House of Blues in Chicago. And by then they were pretty much estranged from each other. The band would hang out in one dressing room and Alvin would be in the other. And there were only two dressing rooms at the House of Blue, which left us out in the cold. So we were sitting in the kitchen. So we had done our sound check, and Leo had just bought a drum machine that he was going to give Rick Lee for his birthday, but he really didn't know anything about drum machines. And Leo at the time was running a studio in Nashville.
Still has it.
Still has it, right. So he asked, because I was playing drums in that band at the time, he asked if I knew how to program it. So I did. So he didn't want to just give it to Rick and say, okay, you know, it produces drum sounds, but I don't know how to do that. So he wanted at least some drum patterns programmed into that. So I did that for him. We all got along famously, and came sound check for 10 Years After, and Alvin wouldn't show up. He stayed in the dressing room. So they kind of asked, well, does anybody play guitar? Now, again, I was the drummer at the time, but everybody kind of pointed at me like, he plays guitar. You know? So I ended up playing guitar through Alvin's rig, and we ended up doing a part of, I I can't keep crying sometimes, but 10 years after. So it was like an incredible experience for me. And so we had a great time. And after their set and the night was over, we all were invited to 10 years after's dressing room. So it was Chick Churchill and Leo Lyons and Rick Lee and our band. And we were just all hanging out, having a hoot of a time. And you could see down the hallway was Alvin's dressing room, and the door was open. And so I was standing somewhat near the door, and every once in a while I could see Alvin's head peeking around the corner. So I think at that point he was just, tired. It was pretty boring in his dressing room. There was nobody there, and he ended up coming down the hallway, and he comes into the dressing room, and we're all making introductions, and he comes up to me and he says, "Oh, you're the guitar guy." He says, "Oh, I hear you do me pretty well." I didn't quite know how to respond to that. I said, yeah, I guess so. He's like, yeah, it's okay. Thanks for doing the sound check. And we just hit it off really well. Alvin was, he just turned out to be a sweetheart. And I think we got on so well because Alvin was a huge Bo Diddley fan. He loved Bo Diddley. And when Bo whenever he would tour Europe, Alvin would try to catch as many shows. And I think we hit it off so well because I actually played drums with Bo Diddley in a couple of shows in Chicago when he was in town. And that was an incredible experience in itself. So I think when Alvin found out that I played with Bo Diddley, that was a pretty good icebreaker, so to speak. So,
Endeared you a little bit to him.
yeah.
Well, according to Leo, that the thing that Pete just described happened even back at Woodstock. They couldn't get Alvin out of his dressing room. That was
really?
kind of an ongoing thing. So when I mentioned that to Leo, he went off about several stories about the same.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Wow.
So, Richard, do you have any questions for Mr. Flynn? I know you're not a guitar guy.
Well, it's not so much I'm not a guitar guy. I don't know gear. I don't play anything, unfortunately. But I just know what I like.
Yeah.
And if I like the sound, that's all I really basically know, unfortunately.
Why don't you tell the story to Pete and Andrew in the audience about what you learned from the bass player from Boiler House, Danny's first band, without saying too much.
Well, I was able to do a couple of Zoom calls with Trevor Stevens. He was the original bass player for Boiler House, Danny's first band. And very, very nice guy. I mean, very generous with his time. One of the things that he said, because it's kind of like a guitar cliche, he said a lot of times people would come up to them after the show and they would say to either to the Trevor, the bass player, or to Danny, that Danny should stop making faces the way you do when you're playing. And Trevor was like, he's not putting on an act. He really believes, he feels the music that deeply that he's being moved like that. And he says, and if you don't believe me, look at his hands after every set. They're bleeding. And I was like, geez, I mean, talk about really getting into the music.
Now,
at that time,
could that have been Pete because he was playing a Watkins guitar?
trying to bend those strings?
Yeah. With that vibrato he had?
Yeah.
But, he said that, to Danny, getting those notes was the most important thing. It didn't matter if there was 4 people in the audience or, if they were playing to a full club, because by the end of Boiler House, they were doing headlines. They were the headliners, and they had other bands coming up behind them. And I asked Trevor, were there any bands that they played with either as opening act or that, they were playing support that they, that really made an impression on him. And Trevor said the one guitarist that really stood out for him was Paul Kossoff. When Black Cat Bones, Kossoff's first band, opened for Boiler House, they were playing at the Marquee, and he said they got to the show, and Boiler House had their equipment all set up, and then Black Cat Bones came in, and they started doing their setup. And he goes, they're just, starting to get their equipment up and everything. And Danny called Trevor over and said, we got to stay for their first set. These guys are going to be really something. And Stevens was like, how do you know? Like, they haven't played anything yet. And Danny said he was watching Kossoff tune up. And just by the way he tuned his guitar, he knew this guy knew what he was doing. And he would be able to, he was going to really, put on a show. And I thought that was really interesting that that Danny, just from listening to the guy tune, knew that, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. He's a real player.
Well, how about the guitar that he had in his apartment that he could never tune?
Yeah.
Trevor, not Danny.
Right. Because Danny answered an ad that Trevor had put in Melody Maker saying big bass player gig wanted. So Danny and his friend, who was a drummer, answered the ad, and they went to this guy's house to, to talk to him and get a feel, like to see if this might be something that they could work out. And Trevor said he didn't have his bass at the house at the time, but he had this old beat up acoustic. Said it cost about £8, which is basically nothing. And as soon as Danny saw it, he picked it up and he started to tune it. And the guy was like, I've never heard that guitar. In all the years I owned it, the guitar never sounded like that. And of course, this is all without any type of electronic tuning or anything. Danny's doing all of this by ear.
Yeah,
and that Trevor said, that's when I thought, because Trevor was, I think he said he was 18. Danny was, the drummer was 16 and Danny was 15.
Wow.
And Danny looked like he was probably 13, at that point. And he was like, I don't know if I'm going to want to play. These are kids. Like, what the heck are we going to do? But as soon as he heard what Danny did with his guitar, he was like, yeah, I think I'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think Danny is very much an unsung hero of the guitar world. I think you'd agree, Pete.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a guitarist that Pete introduced me to and gave Jeff and my book to, Davey Knowles.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you talk about him, Pete?
Davey's from the Isle of Man. He now lives in the States, in the Chicago area. He is a heck of a guitar player, and again, just a great guy, beautiful guy. Davey's, he's using my pickups, which is great. But Davey, right now, I think, well, he's touring the States with his band, Davey Knowles. His latest album just came out. He's certainly one to listen to if you're into, again, British blues, all that stuff. He's a student of all that stuff. Peter Green, loves Peter Green. He just bought basically a Greenie Les Paul, and I made him a set of pickups for that guitar. But he plays with Rory Gallagher's band, the Band of Friends, which I think is touring in a couple weeks throughout the UK. So that's another act to catch.
And I gotta say, when I was chatting with him, he profusely thanked Jeff and I for calling out Danny in the book.
Yeah, he's a
Very good.
Too. Yeah,
very good.
And I was not aware of him until Pete introduced me to him, and was kind enough to give him a book. But he's not to be negative. This is a positive, but he's an old time player. and
Yeah.
he's only in his early 30s.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
he's certainly carrying the torch. That is,
Yeah.
That's great.
you know,
That's great.
whether it's Cream or, you know, again, Peter Green. I mean, he'd just pull out stuff at shows, you just off the top of his head. You know, I mean, he's just Rory Gallagher stuff. I mean, he's just amazing. He's just incredible. So yeah, he's definitely one.
It's
to
quite impressive.
So, and you know, and I know Robert too. We were talking about Paul Kossoff. He didn't know. I mean, you know, he knew who Paul was, but wasn't that keen on his background and stuff. There's a great documentary that his dad had put together on YouTube. Paul Kossoff and David Kossoff, his dad. That is definitely definitely one to catch. And you know, there's not much written about Paul Kossoff, so this book too is really a must. This is kind of like the Paul Kossoff Bible. So this is one to get for sure. So I think, you know, one of the reasons that Kossoff caught, you know, Danny's attention and these guys is that he had a classical guitar background, which is very unusual for classical musicians to go into rock or blues or something like that. So it really made Kossoff's style his very own and something very unusual from anything anybody else had done.
That's a good call because, I mean, Danny's first pen signal with Fleetwood Mac was Jigsaw Puzzle Blues, right?
Right.
And that was basically St. Louis Blues by Django Reinhardt.
Yep.
Am I correct, Richard? I'm saying something wrong.
Now you did your homework.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Richard, what is the most surprising thing you found out in your 15-year plus venture into Peter Green?
Oh, the most surprising thing?
Yeah.
Um,
Probably hard to pin down one, maybe.
yeah. I mean, with the Kerwin book now, I found a profile / interview that he had done about a year after he had joined Fleetwood Mac. So it was like 1968, and it was in a British comic book. Yeah, they apparently this was a popular genre in England at the time. They were called romance comics, and they would illustrate popular songs, and like the dialogue balloons would be the lyrics of the songs.
Oh.
So it was usually like pop stuff, and then like in between the pages, they would have like profiles of different musicians. And I was surprised that they even thought that somebody that was in Fleetwood Mac would be of interest to the audience that they're selling these comic books to. You know, because I would think it was mainly like tween girls. And I don't think Fleetwood Mac really had that type of a fan base.
No, but
know?
I can tell you one thing Mike Vernon told me about Fleetwood Mac in their incarnation with 3 guitarists. I said, so Danny got scared in Chicago because he heard gunshots. But I said, you know, all the girls attracted to Danny. I mean, he's like you said, he was just a little kid. And Mike Vernon said, Bob, who are you going to go up to as a teenage girl? The guy with the boyish looks or the guy who looks like he just stepped out of a, religious movie?
Yeah. But in this article, Danny said that he started off as a drummer, and he was playing drums up until about the age of 15. And then when he met his friend who ended up being the drummer for Boiler House, he knew he wanted to make a band with this guy, but he was like, well, we don't need 2 drummers, so I'll learn guitar. And it wasn't until he was about 15 that he started to play guitar, and that was only because he already had a drummer in the band that he wanted to put together. And I'd never read anything about Danny playing drums before.
No, CP is possible.
Yeah.
I'm glad to think about that. 2 years after that, He was a member of one of the biggest bands of Britain.
Yep. It's all it took him. It's all it
I
took him
mean,
to.
Albatross was, if I'm not mistaken, Richard, the first instrumental #1 hit in England.
I don't know if it was the first instrumental or not. That I'm not sure of. I don't remember ever
Okay.
coming across anything that said that. I mean, it was their first #1.
Yeah.
That was for sure.
And I wanted to make sure, Andrew, that Rich mentioned the Albatross guitar because Simon and I were talking about it, and he says, "That's got to be a slide." And I'm like, "No, I said, that's Danny." He goes, "Well, then it's really impressive."
Yeah. Yeah,
know what kind of
most
guitar-
people.
What kind of guitar was he playing at that? Was he playing one of Peter's guitars?
I'm not sure. I know he was still playing his Watkins guitar when he first joined them. But I think by the time he did the session, he had already bought a Les Paul.
He had a gold top.
Yeah, I think so. I think by the time they did the recordings, but I don't know because he did a BBC session like within weeks of joining the band. And there's a couple of live bootlegs. I mean, the sound quality is just terrible on him, but he must have still been playing the Watkins. I'm not sure about I would assume the BBC session. He was still playing the Watkins also. And he did I think he did like 3 songs on that session. It was the one where they did like 12 or 15 songs because they were going to tour. They were going to go back to the States, and they wanted to build up like a library that the BBC could use during the months that they were out, overseas again. So it was like a tremendous outlay of material for the BBC that they did, and Danny did a few originals. He did "Talk with You" and "Something Inside of Me."
Which I have to interrupt you for a second because "Something Inside of Me" he recorded with Fleetwood Mac, but he played that in Boiler House, so he probably wrote that when he was 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah. There was about there was a box set that came out a couple of years ago that had 5 acetates that Boiler House recorded before they broke up. And in the liner notes, there's a reproduction of a set list from Boiler House. And it's about 12 songs. And between the set list and some of the songs that they recorded, there was about 6 or 7 songs that he ended up performing with Fleetwood Mac that he had already been playing with Boiler House. And I was really surprised. Stuff like One-Sided Love, which I wish they would have put on tape in the studio because I love that song. I think that's a great song. Talk with You was another one that he was doing with Boiler House. Something Inside of Me. But I was surprised at just how much material he actually stepped into Fleetwood Mac with. He had already worked out as a young teenager.
So is that
and he was able to
early BBC stuff with Fleetwood Mac? Is that on the Fleetwood Mac BBC box set? I think it's
I think almost all of it is available now. Like all of the it was in August of 68. I don't remember the exact date, but I'm pretty sure all of the tracks have been released now, over the years. I love the BBC performances.
Yeah, I recently got the Fleetwood Mac BBC box set. It's great.
Yeah, I love that material. I mean, it's amazing that they did so many songs for the BBC, mainly for the radio. They did a few television performances, But out of all the songs they did, there was only like 3 or 4 that they did more than once. Like they never played whatever the latest single was, they hardly ever played it. You know, most bands, it's like, well, you're going on the radio, plug your latest song. And they were like, no, we'll just find some old song that we'll do a cover of. And it's like, you guys are unbelievable, man.
That sounds like a Peter Green idea.
Yep. Yep. No, we don't do that. We don't want to be commercial or anything.
It's like the bet he made with Mick Fleetwood about "Oh Well" being a hit.
Yeah. Yep. John McVie and Mick Fleetwood were like, you know, it's gonna sink like a stone.
And I gotta say, in the book that Jeff and I did, I'm always asked by other people, "What's the coolest thing or the most interesting thing you found in the book?" And I always say the band Dia Matrona, 2 20-something girls from Ireland who are buskers, who are totally into Green and Kerwin, and they're 23 years old. And they did I followed them along with Bruce Thomas from Elvis Costello, who said, "Oh, you're watching them too?" And I was going to try to bring them over, Pete, for one of the Hamer jams, and Paul's like, "Bob, they're Irish. You're going to bring over 21-year-olds to the United States? You might want to rethink that." So, but they've played Royal Albert Hall now, backing up U2.
Wow.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And they were buskers like what we've been talking every day for 3 years, Jeff? So they've been doing it for like 4 years.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So
Yeah,
Pete, can
that's
you,
terrific.
Jeff asked me this earlier when we were talking. Can you put a PAF pickup like in a Fender to make it sound like a Gibson?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah. You just round a big hole in it. And you stick
Leaves
it
a
in there.
big gaping gap.
I've done it.
Now I don't want to
Guys,
trade
my
secrets, but
my
how long does
battery
it
is
take you
starting
to wind
go
a
in the
pickup?
iPad. I just wanted to ask Andrew. Really, I was
Oh.
serious. We see things under your name and Andy. That's you too, isn't it?
That's
On
me.
Facebook.
Yep, one and the same. Yep.
Oh, okay.
By the way, if you didn't know, Andrew, please wish Jeff had his 87th birthday like 10 days ago.
Awesome.
Well
I
done.
told you not
Congratulations.
to bring that up.
All right, Jeff. I know you can bitch me out later.
Wait till this ends. You're in for it.
That's right. But one of the songs Pete did with his group at the Hamer Jam was "Long Gray Mare,"
Yes. Yep. Yep.
which is
That's
there's,
always a
there's
pleasure.
like 3 or 4 different renditions of that song, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yes.
one of my favorites is Gary Moore's on his Blues for Greenie record. That's a
I know
great-
that's an Andrew favorite, Gary Moore and Brad.
Well, speaking of books again, because Andrew turned me on, this was one of his reviews, the Gary Moore book, Harry Shapiro. Harry wrote the Electric Gypsy Hendrix book, which is outstanding. But I'm almost finished with this book, 2 chapters to go, so I've gotten through the bulk of it. So much Peter Green references, of course, in here. There'd be no Gary Moore without Peter Green. It's yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff.
Did you see him play, Pete?
I did not, no, but he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's a great player. And you know the story when he brought the 59 Les Paul of Peter Green's to the Hamer factory. Paul's like, "Oh, do you have that?" He goes, "Yeah, it's in my trunk."
Yeah.
Which is-
Well, that's how the headstock got broken, because it was in the boot of his car, and he got in a car accident, and the Les Paul was in the car, and that's how the headstock got broken.
Yep. Oops.
So I guess that didn't deter him from keep putting it back in the trunk.
I guess not.
Good point.
Well, the people,
point.
going back to where we started with the Hendrix, the people that you talked to that saw Hendrix must have been like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah. No, they were, again, all in their teens, 14, 15, 16.
Because I know Chris Herman saw him and he was, I think, 8.
It was,
His father
well,
took him to see Hendrix
yeah. Well,
at the Civic Opera House.
I would have been 7 if my dad would have asked me to go. I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, when Hendrix played the Coliseum, he was endorsing Sun amplifiers. At that point, he wasn't using. He was still using his Marshalls, but he always used the Suns for his PA, like monitors. They didn't use monitors in the front of the stage. They used side fills for vocals. And there's a picture of Jimmy at the Coliseum in Chicago with this Sun cabinet for his vocal monitor. I have that cabinet right now in the studio at my house. I was lucky enough to get my hands on that because I had a customer at Flynn Guitars who had bought it from the guy from the production company, One Way Productions in Chicago, that had supplied the Sun backline for Hendrix at that show. So I finally worked its way to me after all these decades.
Very nice.
And we have to mention, since I see my favorite Jeff Beck album behind your shoulder. I was with Carol at a concert at the Park West, and behind us was Ed Smith, who you now know.
Yeah.
And he tapped me on the shoulder and he says, halfway through this concert, aside from seeing his favorite drummer, he's like, "Bob, that's got to be a trick guitar." Is there a reason that he had the tuning pegs on the bottom side?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what guitar he was playing at that show.
Well, no, the Fender that he plays, it's like the tuning pegs instead of top, they're on the bottom.
Oh, well, then he probably put a lefty neck on it or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I told Ed, I'm like, you're 20 feet from the stage. Do you see any tricks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like wearing combat boots, walking around the stage.
There's the trick right there.
Yeah. The things he did, like at Ronnie Scott's with the slide, it's impossible. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys, there's an incredible guitar player I've known for forever here in Chicago area, Grant Ty, and Grant can play all of that stuff. And again, it sounds like sometimes he's got a bottleneck slide in his hand and he never uses a slide. It's just incredible stuff, man. Yeah. So, of course, Jeff Beck has permeated all of us guitar players too. There's another guy I want to mention that was really another guy under the radar is Bernie Marsden.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie's just was a fantastic guitar player, and I first was turned on to him in Whitesnake, which was David Coverdale's band after Deep Purple. And Bernie's on like the first 3-4 albums, and he went on to do solo stuff. But he also, I think it's 1995. There's a great album called Green and Blues. If you guys have not heard of that,
yep.
That he's doing a lot of Peter Green material and John Mayall Bluesbreaker stuff on there. Really great album. He's just totally owning the Peter Green tone on that, the whole out of phase pickup thing going on there.
If I'm not mistaken, Rich, weren't they friends?
I believe Green knew Marsden. Yes. Yeah. I've seen photographs online 80 years of Marsden and Green. So he definitely knew him. Absolutely. I don't know that he ever got a chance to work with him, on anything that was released, not like Snowy White, but yeah, he definitely was friends with Marsden.
Well, I have a new album to buy because I'm not familiar with that one, Pete. Thank you.
There you go.
Enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. I think Marsden also did a tribute album or series of tribute albums to the Three Kings BB, Freddie, and Albert, and he did one of covers of favorites of his from the Chess Studio. He's really very good.
Yeah.
He's really very good.
It's great.
Again, I mean, steeped in all that Blues Breakers, Peter Green,
Yep.
Mick Taylor, all the early stuff. He learned all of his chops from those guys too.
Yeah, I was really excited. I was never really a Rolling Stones fan after Brian Jones, but I thought, oh, finally they get a great guitar player. And then I listened to Goat's Head Suits. I'm like, is he there?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
Mick Taylor's a great.
I'm finally at 5% on the battery, so I got to go.
You gotta
It's
go.
nice to
Okay,
see you
Jeff.
all.
Hi, Jeff.
Andrew,
Jeff, it was great to see you.
give my
Take
best to
care.
Simon, will you, Andrew?
Thank you.
Okay.
Talk to you tomorrow, Jeff.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Take care now.
I'll send you that picture tonight or tomorrow, Pete.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Anyway, he was very excited about asking you if you wanted that picture, Pete.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, of course, I've been asking him, like, okay, you got pictures of the police. Can you just find a picture of Stuart Copeland?
I know Stuart would appreciate it.
Yeah, well, to me, he made the police.
Again, those guys, just the three of them, so unique individually as musicians, just as a whole. They certainly made magic.
And Andy's a great guitarist.
He's incredible. I mean, a lot of people don't know that he's really, his guitar background is all jazz. And Clapton got one of his famous bursts that he used in Cream from Andy too. Andy is he's a treasure. There's great videos of him out there. And when you actually see, and again, it's another one of this phenomena of pop music that if you think it's going to be easy to reproduce the Police music because again you think it's 3-chord, 4-chord pop music, you better think again because his chord inversions and everything, because he comes from a jazz background, is what makes that Police music so unusual. And being in a trio, he just had such a way of filling it all up because of his chord inversion inventions were truly unique. He's an absolute marvel on guitar.
We have a fan of your Peter Green T-shirt there, Pete.
It's not for sale.
So, looks like you got a couple new guitars, Andrew. I don't think I've seen the blue one behind your head.
Oh, it's just a Jazzmaster. Got to have a Jazzmaster.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, don't you and Mike play Jazzmasters on the?
We both play Jazzmasters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the guitars Carol likes.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. Gotta have it.
That's great.
You never
Richard,
have too many guitars, right?
We'll look forward to the Danny Kerwin book, and hopefully it doesn't take 15 years.
Yeah.
Jeff's book,
Wait,
which we're leaning toward a title called, okay, you can smile in a second, Richard, Listening with My Ears. Because I think that says a lot about, because the book is so diverse. I mean, probably 70% jazz, but you got all the chess people too. He's got a great picture of Howlin' Wolf. I think I sent that to you once, Pete.
Yeah.
I mean, Firebird.
Firebird, right? So when is that coming out? Is that 15 years?
Well, I'm working off one of Carol's many laptops. My computer's in the shop down at Apt, and I was supposed to get it back last week, so hopefully this week. But we have Print Innovation doing scans of about 70 black and white negatives to clean them up. So I'm hoping to make the cutoff so my editor can get it out this spring.
Wow.
I can tell you, and Debbie will get mad, but she probably won't watch this, but the Kim Simmons autobiography coming out record store day next year.
Okay, great.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
that
I'm
would be
also
great.
working with a producer on the West Coast about possibly, fingers crossed, remastering Raw Sienna
Oh,
in
excellent.
tandem with the book.
That would be.
And now we know why Chris Yolden never got back to me.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Ah,
As Jeff said, that was a good excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a vocalist that guy was.
Yep. No, I'm really looking forward to the next book with you and Jeff. And now you've got my interest even more when you said there's a great picture of Howlin' Wolf, because he's a personal favorite. I love
Gosh,
Howlin'
how
Wolf.
did I know that? Maybe your email address?
That I'll have to buy from Jeff to put in my room.
And by the way, Pete and everybody else, you can get the hardcover books from Richard, but also their ebooks too available, right?
Yes, they are
Interesting enough,
available as
though, you said
ebooks.
people overseas will pay the freight. They want the actual books.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Too.
can't blame them.
I mean,
Yeah, I kind of knew that was going to happen, because, I know how I am. And it's like, well, his fan base, aside from, these young girls in Ireland, most of them are going to be closer to my age. And you want to hold the book. Same way I don't like streaming music. I want to have a physical disc to hold in my hand and to read.
Well, you're
That's,
right.
I mean, I knew most people.
We've lost all of that art, when you bought vinyl and you got liner notes and these
Yeah.
pictures. There's something to really that you could dive your imagination into. And
Yep.
like when I first saw Are You Experienced, and I'm looking at this fisheye cover, like it just blew me away. So you
Yep.
can, you're just in magical land when you've got something tangible like that. And a book is no different. It's just, I think, I think that's just another great way to pass things on to the next generation, is to have something tangible instead of it just
Yes.
lost in the ether. Like, how do I find that? It's just, it just means so much more. It really does.
Yep. I mean, I think about how my introduction to the classic rock of the 60s and whatnot was that I have an older brother, and I would go through his record collection. And that was how I discovered these bands. I mean, I was like 8, 9 years old, and I'm listening to Cream, and it's like, I've never heard anything like this in my life. This is unbelievable. But again, having those physical albums to hold on to and look at the pictures and study it, it made all the difference in the world. It really did. Because I had to do all of that when he was out of the house.
notes.
It's one of the reasons vinyl has made such a big comeback too.
Yes, absolutely.
There was a thing on the news this morning about how cassettes are making a comeback. Because people want tangible things.
It was a great medium, wasn't it? I mean, it's
hi-fi.
Yeah.
I
mean, there was a lot to be said for it as far as convenience.
Speaking of that,
you couldn't really carry the LPs around with you to hear them. So,
Right.
Yeah, I'm working on a new album too with a band that I played drums in. Again, most of these backup spots we had in Chicago was a band called Mother Root, ROOT, where I played drums. My brother wrote most of the material on it, so it's going to be like 90% originals. And we're going to do a little video release. We'll have a YouTube page.
oh, nice.
We're finally releasing this, and we're going to do this on vinyl also. There'll be a
Terrific.
Good.
format too.
That's great. Congratulations.
Well, thank
you.
We're,
Best of luck with that.
We're in the studio doing the final mixes right now with our engineer, Danny Schaefer. And Danny is a well-known engineer producer here in Chicago. He helped me when I worked on the Hendrix multi-track Atlanta pop tapes and Roy Buchanan stuff from the Roy Buchanan estate. So Danny's a gem, and he's just been. I mean, we actually recorded this album. It was either 1999 or 2000, and then again, as people went their separate ways, and things got a little muddied where there was too many overdubs, and it just never got released because it never got finished. So we're finally, and it's we're actually kind of targeting this as the greatest rock album that never was, because nobody had never got released. But it is certainly in that vein of Deep Purple, Bad Company, any classic rock thing that you've ever heard. So we're really looking forward to putting this out. It's going to be called Debts, Mother Root Debts. So we'll let you know when that's going to
Wow.
launch too.
Please,
Very
absolutely.
That's very cool,
Absolutely.
Pete.
Please do.
That's great. I don't know how you find time to do all the things you do, Pete.
Well, you know me, Robert. It's like
I know.
I don't sleep. It's just it's go go go. So,
We're a member of the same
Sleeping's
club.
for the dead.
yeah, right. Poor Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're putting him to sleep, and I don't know what time it is there in New Zealand, but it's got to be 3 and 4 in the morning.
Well,
Yeah, just
And-
keep us in the loop with your new release, Pete, and we'll share all those links. Love to be part of that. Sounds exciting.
Awesome, thank you.
yeah, Andrew's going to do another show in a couple hours, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So we should
Um,
let him get a cat nap in.
yeah. Appreciate
I'm on
you
my
guys jumping
fourth
on.
coffee right now just to get through the day.
Yeah, appreciate you guys jumping on, keeping us in the loop with what you guys have been up to. So we'll keep the channel updated. It's going to be exciting, and obviously, Bob, anything that you and Jeff do together is going to be really, really important. So we look forward to that.
And Andrew,
Keep
congratulations
us in the
on
loop
all your.
with a publication date, Bob.
Yeah, I'll let you know. And congratulations on all your subscribers. I mean, I remember when you
That
had
was
500.
tremendous.
Yeah, thanks for all you do and keeping the other side of the globe busy for us.
Ditto.
That was tremendous.
Yeah, no problem, Pete. And yeah, we'll probably touch base and have a chat to you about the Mike Campbell biography that you've read. We haven't had a chance to talk about that, but yeah, I'd like to share your thoughts about that book, because I think it's probably going to be a benchmark biography for guitar players. The way that Mike talks about the guitar, especially, doesn't get too technical.
No.
But he, right from the word go, when he's describing learning the guitar and playing with Mudcrutch and the chords that he was using and learning songs, and describing how he learnt the Chuck Berry riff, it's just incredible. It's just an incredible biography,
Yeah.
I think.
It's very in depth and very candid.
That's on my list now.
It's very emotional too.
Yeah, I've got.
nice.
I'm sort of cheating. I'm reading that in conjunction with listening to him on the audio book, because he narrates the audio book,
Oh, cool.
which is fantastic. And I just love that fact that he's got that southern accent, and he puts in a couple of laughs and giggles. Obviously where there's no laughs or giggles when he's talking about things, and it's audio books just add another dimension to to the printed book. Nothing beats the book itself, having the book.
But it's cool to hear him read it.
100%, Bob.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, you
That's
got to
awesome.
hear, and again, you got it. Mike really has developed it, on his own at this point. His band, the Dirty Knobs, and his last album, The Vagabonds, it is just excellent. It's just
You're going to go
songs.
see him. Isn't he coming to Milwaukee?
He's come to Milwaukee, and I met him twice last year. He's got my Firebird pickups in one of his Firebirds, and his other guitarist, Chris Holt, who is an amazing guitar player and pianist and vocalist. He is now also playing the third guitar in the Eagle. So Chris is using my pickups too. They're just super, super great, nice guys to boot. So
That's great.
you got to buy their records. Chris Holt's solo record just came out yesterday. So, go out and support these guys. You will love their music.
Absolutely.
100%. And Mike has an affinity for Firebirds because his first decent guitar after that Guy Tone was a Firebird that he bought. So, I just love the detail, that he has. And that's one of the reasons why you just held that book up earlier at the beginning of the show, Pete. The Gary Moore book by Shafaro.
Yeah.
The detail, that he puts into that book, and also the one that he did on Jack Bruce composing himself. A lot of authors don't get into the nitty gritty, Bob. Into the details, and some do, and you appreciate that because it's more than just the story.
Right.
There's other ingredients, other aspects too, and
well, I think that's what you look for when you're reading something about an artist, whether it be a musician or otherwise.
100%.
Yeah. The more human side of them and how they have come to develop their thing.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going through a bit of a buzz at the moment, Bob Dylan buzz, and I've never really read. I don't know anything about Bob Dylan. It's been just basically because of the movie. So I've been just sort of blown away by a lot of facts that I've been reading about him. And again, I think the author only released the book about 10 years ago, and break the news that Bob Dylan had married this girl and has a daughter, and no one knew that, and this biographer managed to get that information, rather than like a lot of authors out there just rehash Guitar Magazine articles. Pete, there's a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
There's a couple of Eddie Van Halen books out there that have just basically done that, rehashed, Guitar World magazines. So if you want
the book is really great. There's some really great insights about Dylan, and again, his more human side instead of the elusive side of him, and how they work with the traveling Wilburys and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of great content in there, other than just Mike Campbell himself.
Well, it sounds like Rich will be looking for an Andrew Pete Flynn review of that book shortly on YouTube.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for people to organic fans to get together and just talk about good books and good films and good albums. It's what it's about.
That's very cool that you're remastering your old band, Pete. That's awesome. Good luck. I hope you can get it on vinyl within the next 9 months.
Yeah, well, there's the problem. Because vinyl's so popular, all the vinyl producing houses they're just all backed up. So,
wow.
Gotta have it.
It may take a while, but we will definitely get out, some sort of a digital. If not anything, we'll have it on a YouTube channel.
I look forward to that.
I want the vinyl.
Now we'll kind of do a form like we're doing here with the whole band and Danny Schaefer is how this whole thing came about, because Danny really he's really the one pushed us lately about we got to do this, we got to finish it because it's such a great work of art. This album that everybody needs to hear it. So we're just super stoked and excited about it.
Terrific.
Wow.
Very
Awesome,
cool.
guys. Keep us in the loop, Pete, with that. And remember, we'll be happy to promote that for you at any stage of its development. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Jeff.
you,
Thank you
Andrew.
for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Remember,
Good night.
folks, if you're watching on a replay, drop a comment wishing Jeff Lowenthal a happy birthday from a couple of weeks, please. He'd be
Thank you.
Happy to see that, I'm sure.
I guarantee it. And make sure you check out Pete Flynn's pickups. I'm sure Andrew will put the website down as well. And
I'll do that.
remember, they can be shipped around the world. They can actually be shipped to New Zealand.
They can.
Awesome. Worldwide. And folks in the chat, Helene, Tim, Mission RD100, thanks for joining us. John ZD351, we'll see you later, brother. He's going to be on the channel with us. And as I say, Mark was also in the chat. And anyone else who's watching on replay, we appreciate you spending an hour and a half of your time checking out what we had to say. We appreciate it. And I'll have some social media links to everybody here. So please go and follow them. If there's one thing that we ask you to do, we'll have some Instagram accounts, some web pages, Rick's, Richard's, and Pete's as well. Pete, do you want me to put your Facebook link in the description as well so people can find you in Facebook?
Yeah, he
Cool.
needs more. He needs more friends. Ha ha.
Cool.
I don't know if I can get any more friends, but you can certainly follow. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll do the same for you too, Rich, and
Thank you.
Bob as well. So
Thank you as
thanks
always.
for joining
Thank
us.
Thanks.
Thank
guys.
you.
All right. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll just play the end video and we'll end the show.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for having me. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.